So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar where we're going to take a closer look at an augmented reality solution from PTC called Vuforia Expert Capture. My name is Rob Romanowski. I am the Director of Sales Operations with 3HTI. And today, my special guest who will be presenting is Anthony Garner, who is a pre-sales technical specialist at PTC. And he's going to give us a quick overview with a handful of slides on what Expert Capture is, and then he's going to give an actual presentation on what Expert Capture can do for your business. And it's a really tremendous tool to help with training, to help with quality, and without stealing any of Anthony's thunder, that's exactly what you're going to see today. So just to let everybody know, obviously we're using Zoom. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type those in. We will try to answer those during the webinar, but we will definitely answer them at the end of the webinar. And I'm thinking that this might take approximately 30 to 40 minutes. So we're gonna try and keep all the fluff out of it and just get right to the good stuff. So with that, Anthony, I'm gonna, do you want to take control? I'm gonna stop sharing,
okay,
and then you can take control.
So thank you very much, Robert. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, let me make sure everything's going good behind the curtain here. So like what we were saying, my name is Anthony Garner. I am a pre-sales technical specialist or an application engineer, depending on how you want to refer to it. And we're going to be going over the Expert Capture suite, Expert Capture product, which is a out-of-the-box solution for rapidly capturing domain expertise and then deploying it at scale in your enterprise. We're going to go over a few slides here, not too many, and then we're going to jump directly into a demonstration showing the full process of utilizing Expert Capture. So for our first slide,
no screen yet.
Oh, you still can't see my screen?
You might have to, I think you have to select the screen that you want to share. I use more than one. I have two screens.
Okay, so let me.
And it also with Zoom, it'll pick, like if you have different tabs open, there we go.
Yep, thank you very much, Robert. Apologies
You're welcome.
for that.
No worries.
So the first slide I always like to go through is just the general challenges that is Proc PTC to develop and continue to develop this solution. So one of the big challenges that we've continuously seen in industry was kind of like the inspiration to actually start developing this is the overarching worker skill gap. So when you have those personnel who's been working with a specific process or a specific product for the lion's share of their career, they have loads and loads of domain expertise. When they leave the business, whether that be for a retirement or whether that be to pursue other opportunities for whatever reason, even if they're just not there for extended periods of time, they take that domain expertise out of the process and leaves you with the necessity of fitting the cost of actually getting as much personnel trained up to that process as possible. And the actual, I'll say, process of actually creating that information, getting people trained up to scale is a very, very inefficient process as it was before the development of Vuforia Expert Capture. Of course, another big challenge is that the products and workspaces in our modern global economy aren't getting any simpler. They're continuously getting more complex, requiring more specialized domain expertise. And from that, it just adds a force multiplier at the amount of resources you need to allocate in order to get that new personnel trained up after that expert leaves off, whether that be for retirement or some other ending. And towards that same extent, now we exist in a more globalized world with increased customer demands for both the actual delivery of our products or even into a more service view, the ability to actually deliver on your SLAs as effectively as your competition. The solution for this is, of course, Vuforia Expert Capture, which is an out-of-box solution to improve productivity by empowering frontline workers to work with relevant information that they need at their fingertips. Subject matter experts can easily record step-by-step instruction and best practices on how to perform critical tasks, which can then be shared with new or redeployed workers for fast and efficient on-the-job guidance. And the way the Expert Capture, I'll say, process works is more or less in 3 steps. The first step is the actual capturing of the expertise. There we go. Capturing of the expertise of that expert. So what this involves is arming your expert with either a RealWear device or a HoloLens and having them go through the process that you're attempting to actually capture. And during that run through that process, they're going to be capturing videos and photos of the process, any auditory tips and tricks they're going to lay out. It's going to be formatted into a step-by-step procedure. Any, I'll say locations of interest or any pieces of information that are going to be very interesting, you can bookmark that. And utilizing the HoloLens, you can also, I'll say, lay down location and waypoint markers to directly guide the end user to the next station within the actual procedure. After the expertise is captured, this is where we actually bring it into our web-based editor, and this is where we can enhance the experience with additional information. We can cut and copy the video however we need to. We can add additional images. We can even add additional documentation that's going to be deployed right at the fingertips, pretty much right on time for that end user. And finally, after you've gotten your experience to essentially the state that you wanted in the most ideal version of that state, you then go ahead and scale out of expertise. And what that means is publishing that experience so that it's consumable by your end users on whatever means that they need to, whether that be just creating more documentation, deploying this on either a mobile or a tablet, or if they have their own RealWear or HoloLens device, they will also be able to experience it through those devices as well. And one thing I'll definitely point out is even though the experience is captured with a HoloLens or RealWear, it doesn't necessarily need to be deployed on the end user's RealWear or HoloLens. It all can very easily be captured from those devices and deployed onto any of these devices or desktop just as easily. So just getting into some of the detail for each and every one of the devices. So one, Vuforia Expert Capture for RealWear, again, allows you to rapidly capture expertise with that RealWear device. And a specific, I'll say, functionality feature of the RealWear is allows you to leverage what is an industrially rated device. So the RealWear HMT1, as you can see in that picture down there, can be directly built into a hard hat. It is shock resistant. It does allow for noise suppression so that you can still hear the commands coming through it. It's built from the ground up to be deployed in those very, I'll say, robust industrial environments without much hiccup. And all this allows for that efficiency share of knowledge. So everything can be captured in the RealWear and then deployed on either a mobile tablet, create documentation however you need to. And it can go from just that one expert taking a certain amount of time out of their day and then deploying that to 500 or 1,000 different end users in your enterprise. And it does allow for 100 situational awareness because it is, I'll say, positioned so that it's delivering the video within your, I'll say, within your actual vision while still allowing you to see out into the actual real world. For the HoloLens, also allows you to rapidly capture domain expertise, but where the HoloLens differs is you can assign steps to specific locations within your environment. The HoloLens has some more advanced technology as far as area recognition is concerned, so you can get a better understanding and actually utilize your area for these instructions, which is what we're actually going to go through with our demonstration for today. And through that advanced technology allows for very immersive AR instructions, and you can guide your workers, like I was saying, by the actual location, essentially where this step need to happen within their environment. So going on to publishing, so the actual publishing editor, which I'm also going to show you here, is a very easy to use drag and drop template. It doesn't require some advanced video editing know-how. It's very intuitive and very easy to work with, as you'll see when I go through our demonstration. And you can also further enhance your experience with additional text, additional photos, and additional media, such as additional audio for different languages to be deployed, or essentially whatever you need. You can also take different raw capture sessions and combine them together to make the most optimal version of your, I'll say, experience. And it will always dynamically format to the device which is being deployed to. So there is no extra step, no extra workaround necessary to make sure this is deployable on an iPad versus an Android versus a RealWear versus an HMT1 versus a desktop. They'll all be deployed and dynamically scaled and formatted to those devices once you publish. And finally, as far as mobile devices are concerned, one, you can leverage readily available mobile devices. Essentially, everyone has a smartphone in their pocket that can probably utilize or I'll say, experience a expert capture experience. And it reduces the time and cost associated with creating compliance documentation because you can pretty much automatically generate any form of document from the step-by-step procedure that you're capturing with the wearable for your expert. Okay. So now I'm actually going to jump directly into our demonstration for today. So this is going to go through the 3-step process of utilizing expert capture. We're going to start in the shoes of our expert who's going to be capturing her domain expertise as far as a procedure with an LC machine is concerned. We're going to take that raw capture session we're going to upload that into our web-based editor, where we're going to make a few more enhancements before we publish it and then see what it looks like for an end user utilizing their own HoloLens, as well as a couple of other devices which can be deployed to. Okay, so I just switched my screen. Robert, can I just make sure that you're currently just seeing a blank white screen right now?
Correct.
Okay. So like I was saying, we're going to start in the shoes of our expert. So first thing she's going to do with her HoloLens is just going to be to start the capture. So she's going to start capturing information for the step 1 of this procedure, as you can see designated by that green circle right there. So for the first step, she's going to actually set down a location point for this refrigeration unit that contains our calibration samples. And then she's going to walk over, open the refrigerator, and then grab the calibration samples out of the box. And just so there's no question about which calibration samples need to be grabbed, she's going to take a picture of the label of the box, and then she's also going to take a picture of her pointing out exactly the dilution sample that needs to be grabbed. So whereas before, to capture this domain expertise would probably require a lot of low fidelity secondhand information, reading your information back from your expert and then porting that into a document. For this one, an expert can just go about and do exactly what it is they've always done, just wearing a wearable device and just capturing that information. So now here she's going to say next step. That's going to start her step 2, which is just going to be to return the calibration samples back into the refrigeration unit. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to say next step again. We're going to set down another location waypoint since our next steps are going to take place at this pipetter station over here. Now she's simply going to move over to here, and then she's going to grab her pipetter and then set that to 500 microliters and take a picture of the pipetter at 500 microliters. So again, all this information that would usually take someone essentially typing away and reporting back from the expert, it's all being captured by the expert in the actual context with all of the nuances and all the tips and tricks necessary to actually do this right here and right then. So for our step 4, going to grab a secondary dilution sample, take another picture of that bottle just to show exactly what needs to be grabbed. And then we're going to go through the process of mixing the 2 samples together to be processed by our machine. So grab our pipetter, grab the cap, and then we're going to go ahead and mix them together. And of course, this works just as well for very, very simple processes that take maybe 8 or 9 steps to much more involved processes that require a very, I'll say, involved procedure in actually capturing each and every one of those. So after we've captured all of the steps of our procedure, we're going to upload that by just simply plugging in our wearable and then uploading that into our web-based editor, which is what we're looking at right here. So to the right is the actual step-by-step outline of the instructions, and as you can see, any of the assets, so the videos as well as the photos that we've captured as a part of that step, are stored right there under our asset for us to drag and drop and move as we need to. In the middle here, this is our I'll say our video preview window. And from here, if we didn't capture the photo that we needed and we want to grab a photo from a specific frame of the video we captured, we can even cut that. We can take an individual picture from that. If we want to edit our video clip, we can even just go ahead and do an edit from there. And as we move to each and every individual step, this is where we can actually see the assets that are stored in this step in our preview window as well. And if we move to our left, this is where we can actually see all of the assets that we have at our disposal for creating these experiences. Some of these are shared assets that's been made available to us as being captured from different experts for us to cut and copy together. And some of these are my own personal assets that I've made as a part of just various procedures. So ultimately what this means is I can set the access rights to any of our material to be as recursive and as secure as I need to, either giving it directly to me or sharing it out to everyone as necessary. So now if we come back to our mass spec demo that we're actually going to be working on here, and we're actually going to start the process of enhancing our experience here. So first thing we're actually going to do is, I don't think us just pointing out this dilution sample is clear enough for our end user. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to draw a circle around this dilution sample and increase the stroke length. So again, there's no question, there's no ambiguity. This is the actual sample you need to grab for this procedure. And all of this is doable directly within Expert Capture. I don't need to download this into an alternative, I'll say picture editor and then re-upload that concurrently. Since this is simply a JPEG, I can take any image I have access to and then simply re-upload that back to utilize for what we see here. And I'll be showing you an example of that in just a second here. And as you can see, I can go ahead and directly to my outline to the right, grab any of my assets in order to make the enhancements that I would need to. So if I wanted to create a new image from any of our frames from our video, or even cut this video down to trim some of the fat off of it just to show the material that's the most necessary, can simply just do that right then and there. And from here to the top right, these are all of the locations that we've actually saved as a part of our procedure. So whenever we lay down that waypoint marker, they designate one of these 5 locations, and I can mix and match these in order to show a step happening at a different location than what I've originally stored. But once we initially upload that, it's just going to automatically default to whatever location we initially set for them, of course. So now we've only recorded 8 steps of this procedure. The capture session cut a little bit short, but now we're actually going to add in an entirely new step for our step 9 here. So first, we're just going to set the text, and this is the text that's going to display to the user's device when they are going through the actual procedure. We define what location that this step needs to take place in. And then we're going to grab our assets and then we're going to drag them into this step. So for this one, what we're actually going to do is we're going to grab a diagram of the LC machine for their reference. So here's like a system overview and a diagram of that object. Okay. And here, this is just a brief preview of what it looks like for I'll say a more robust desktop view. So after we have gotten and enhanced our experience to a state which we think is the most ideal, whether that be just from the raw capture itself, whether that be from splicing together multiple different assets to make the perfect one, we can then go ahead and publish that experience out. And what we mean by publishing is that anyone who has access to this QR code, who has access to this URL link, has access to the most up-to-date version of this experience that we've just created, which means we can go back, unpublish the experience, make any additional just-in-time changes, and then republish it, and then they'll still have the most up-to-date version of this experience, and they still have that same QR code. So if you click on the download Word document file here, this is where we can actually see the automatically generated documentation from the step-by-step procedure that we've just made. So it's automatically going to take the instructions that we stipulated out, as well as any of the image assets that we've created, and just automatically format that to a document, to a step-by-step document that we see here. And here, this is what would actually look like if we were just to present this link for desktop playback in something like a very simple LMS. So here we can actually see the asset that's being played to the right, as well as the text-based instructions to the left, and we can go ahead and scale through all those assets. And even though we're not utilizing a RealWear device, so we don't have that smart location information, we can still designate the actual location that this step is actually taken for, as you can see at the bottom left there. So finally, the last thing we're going to do is first, we're actually going to make sure this is shared out to the right people. So again, Same way I can control who has access, or I should say the administrator can control who has access to what assets to make these experiences. The administrator can also have control of who has the ability to actually view the experiences that we publish. So if we go ahead and click under edit permissions, we can just select what subgroup within our company should have the ability to view this information. So now if we go back down to publish, we're just going to download this QR code, and then we're going to scan this QR code with a end user's HoloLens, and we're going to see what it looks like from their specific perspective. So here, this is of course our first location. If we look up to the right here, this is where we can actually see the assets that have been stored against this step. So first asset here is just the video that we've captured as a part of this step. Okay, and here we can see it from its outside perspective. And another function that the HoloLens allows for is those free space gestures. So what you'll notice there is he basically just tapped his index finger and his thumb together in order to basically move to the next part of the step. We can basically do that because he has like the HoloLens. The RealWear would utilize voice commands to move the actual procedure forward. So that was the first asset, just being that video that we captured. The second asset being this picture of the label that we've actually captured here. And you can also see the text that we deployed in front of him to actually give him the actual textual instructions for what he's doing. So once he's completed that, he can just go ahead and use those free space gestures to hit that green arrow to the right to say, move on to step 2. And here he's going to be presented with all the assets that we've stored for step 2, as well as the text for that actual action. So again, has absolute confidence about what he needs to do for our next step. Then again, free space gesture to press on that next step. And then because of the HoloLens, he's going to get the guidance to the next location for a step, and when he reaches there, it's going to present him with the assets that are stored against this step 3 here. And what you'll notice is another thing, thanks to the HoloLens, is he can reposition where the asset display is actually displaying for his vision. So he does have a certain amount of control over that. So now here he can go ahead and grab the pipetter and he can mix them together however he needs to. So here, another view from an outside perspective. And there, of course, has absolute confidence what he needs to do. So just from that one expert doing what they've pretty much been doing every day, but just simply wearing a HoloLens, I can now deploy that procedure to as many people as my enterprise as I deem necessary to get them trained up as quickly as possible. And of course, during that entire process, I'm creating experts with a lot less cost and a lot less time than it took me to make that first individual expert. So all I do have is just a few more slides to summarize everything we've seen, and then that'll be it for me, and then we can go ahead and see if there's any questions.
Sounds good, Anthony.
So the value that we've actually seen people being able to get from Expert Capture, one is increased workforce productivity and efficiency. The frictionless and very streamlined process of actually getting that domain expertise out to whoever actually needs it the moment they need it makes for a much more efficient workforce. And you can get new workers up to speed much more quickly and much more cost effectively. That entire process, I didn't need to print thousands and thousands of manuals in order to deploy in thousands and thousands of places, paying the postage cost to get them all out there. Basically one capture from that session, then just a QR code, and then everyone who has a QR code has access to the information. And this ultimately can lower the cost of downtime, scrap, and rework because you have those new workers trained up as effectively and efficiently as you can with Expert Capture. And along with the efficient creation of that documentation and the, I'll say, much more effective means of training, you can improve safety and compliance adherence. And you can also meet SLAs and improve overall customer satisfaction as well. And you can cut costs for repeat visits and improve that first time fix rate because they're going to be trained up as well as they're going to be. Okay. So that was my presentation on Expert Capture. Like I keep reiterating, it's just a very streamlined, very frictionless way of getting that new personnel trained up so that when those experts that you're currently reliant on do leave, as they eventually will, it isn't that much of a cost lift to get right back to business as usual.
Yeah, to that point, Anthony, because you also mentioned, you mentioned earlier about the skills gap, also a little bit about the silver tsunami, but also with COVID, what we found with some of our customers is that there's people working remotely, and there's people who have left their companies, and from the manufacturing floor, and they need to hire new people, and they need to train them up quickly, and there's really because they're working with a much depleted staff. They have to do things a lot faster, and they don't have a lot of time. So they need to get people up and running just as quickly as they normally had to, but they just don't have the time to do it. So that's where Expert Capture comes in, because as we saw in the examples, it gives you a step-by-step recording within the HoloLens in that environment of what you need to do. And if you miss a step, flashes red, danger, Will Robinson, go back to the previous step. And this is also a big deal when you also mentioned about scrap and rework. This is going to increase the quality of products as well. You're going to have less faulty products being manufactured. So that's a big deal too. So excellent job. Thank you very much, Anthony. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. Are there any questions?
There are no questions at this time. So I think you did a great job, and a lot of it is kind of self-explanatory. But if you do have any questions, I want to thank everybody for attending. If you can see my screen there. Can you see my screen that says thank you for attending? I think it's there.
I can see it.
All right, good. Just want to make sure. So if anybody has any questions, you can contact us at info@3hti.com. You can email me, or you can just hit reply and send an email to the invitations that you receive for this webinar. They'll come directly to me. If you want to get on a brief call for 10 or 15 minutes just to talk about, to see if Expert Capture might make sense for your company, for your business, give us a call. We'll give you the straight scoop on everything, and see if that makes sense, or if there's another augmented reality solution that might make sense for you also. So anyway, with that, we're going to be dismissed all within a half an hour, which is great. So I want to thank everybody for being on the line. Have a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. And Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you, Anthony.
Yep. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you, Rob. And I reiterate, Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everyone on the line today.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Yep. Bye.